What is wrong with the SAVE Act, Joe?
Well, there is a lot wrong with the SAVE Act. I think one of the biggest problems is it is the most egregious federal consolidation of power since the Patriot Act. It grants to the federal government, to the Department of Homeland Security, almost monopoly control over elections, which is not something we want, which is not something constitutional, but which is done through this SAVE Act. Now, the SAVE Act is only 26 pages. So anybody can read this. It's not like one of these bills that's 1,100 pages. It's 26 pages. Read the bloody thing, and you'll find out that it's a backdoor to the real ID. Any lady who gets married and changes her name, she's going to end up having to get a real ID because because the SAVE Act's going to require her to produce documents that formerly she wouldn't have had to produce. Just showing her marriage license or marriage certificate would have been sufficient. Not anymore. If you move, I just moved from the city of Memphis to the town of Oakland, Tennessee. I'm already registered to vote. But if the SAVE Act were around when I moved, I wouldn't be registered to vote because I would have had to produce all these documents that I shouldn't have to produce as a citizen. And the big thing is the SAVE Act violates Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I've written probably a dozen articles for the New American proving beyond any reasonable doubt that the 14th Amendment was illegally ratified. But putting that to one side, and let's stipulate that the 14th Amendment is actually part of the Constitution. When in doubt, pull it out. Article 1, Section 1 of Amendment 14 says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. The SAVE Act says you just got to be born here. Now, you think about that, Paul, Gary, and Christian. You think about that. We've got tens of thousands of communists, of terrorists, of any sort of malignant person coming across these borders illegally. And any child of those people will now, if the SAVE Act were passed, would be allowed to vote. Now, we do not have anchor babies. Anchor babies are not. Did you just see what I just read in the 14th Amendment? You not only have to be born or naturalized, but you also have to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. If the French ambassador's wife has a baby in D.C., is that baby American? No, of course not. No one would argue that it is. Everyone would know that baby. John McCain, is John McCain Panamanian? No, John McCain's American. Nobody argues this kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody argues, except this SAVE Act violates the 14th Amendment. It violates Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. And the children of every one of those thousands of criminals and terrorists and communists and Marxists who are coming illegally across that border, every one of their children will now be considered citizens of the United States, despite what the 14th Amendment says, despite the fact. Let me read this to you. Let me read this. Senator Jacob Howard, at the time he proposed the 14th Amendment, said the following: its grant of it, meaning the 14th Amendment, grant of citizenship would not include persons born in the United States who are foreign to foreigners or aliens. Well, but yes, it will. The SAVE Act takes the Section 1 of the 14th Amendment and throws it out. The SAVE Act forces real ID onto the states. Yeah. The SAVE Act takes the power given to the power retained, not given, because the states created the federal government. Mm-hmm. The SAVE Act takes the power retained by the states over election and gives it not only to not to Congress, because the Constitution does say Congress can occasionally make changes to that. It grants power over elections to the Department of Homeland Security. I would have to jump through hoops just because I moved 12 miles down the road into the country. I'd have to jump through hoops. If some young lady gets married and changes her last name, as we do in Western society, then she will have to jump through hoops. This SAVE Act destroys all of that. It is a backdoor to real ID.
What
It is
are
an
these?
absolute. It is a violation of the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
And ain't no one saying a word. They're saying, oh, it keeps illegals from voting.
Yeah.
Well, it also declares the children of all those people to be able to vote. Well, guess what? If you're willing to wait, I suppose, 18 years for all those people to be indoctrinated by their parents, because isn't that what the left says?
Mm-hmm.
The left says that parents indoctrinate their children. So all these children of all these thousands of illegals that have been invading for years now are going to be able to vote without anything other than that birth certificate, despite the black letter clear language of the 14th Amendment and despite the obvious statements by the founders contrary to this concept.